Hey, so today we'll be looking at how to import data from one spreadsheet to another spreadsheet in your Rows workspace. To do this, we're going to use our Rows API. There's some very helpful documentation available, let's say to get started, how to authorize the API. But for the purposes for today's task, we'll be using the get values from range endpoint. I'm just gonna scroll down here and you'd find like this is the endpoint that we'd be using, and for this we'll need some details right here, which is like the spreadsheet ID, the table ID, and the range of the source. So let's go grab them. So spreadsheet ID, table ID, and then the range, right? So let's go with spreadsheet ID. To find the spreadsheet ID, you could do that from the URL here. So this right here is the spreadsheet ID. If in case you're unsure of how to grab that, you can also just click on these options here, Rows API, get spreadsheet information. And once you do that, you just paste it, and this is where you'd find the spreadsheet ID. We're going to do the same thing for table ID. Go to more options, Rows API, table ID, and just paste that in here. For range, I'm going to go ahead with A:(I). That's the range we need. So I'm just going to paste it in right here. And let's go generate the endpoint that we have here. So I'm going to type endpoint and use the concatenate function to essentially join some of these string values that we have here. I'm going to reference spreadsheet ID there. Let's go with table ID next, which is sitting in this cell here. And finally the range, which we can just directly reference like so. So once that's done, the endpoint should look something like so. And once that looks good, next we need is headers, or rather, let's go grab our API key first, which we can find in our settings, rows, settings, Rows API. I'm just going to create a new API key real quick, copy this, paste that right here. And I'm going to switch back to the spreadsheet that we were on here. And next step is to create our headers, and for that we can refer the documentation, which is for authorizing purposes or authenticating the API. For that we can use our pair to JSON function. I'm going to write authorization, the value here. Well, I'm going to use the concatenate function and write bearer right here with a space, and then reference this to the API key here like so. And the final step on this process is to actually make the get request. So for that we can just equals get the endpoint or the action URL, which is here, and the headers, which is sitting in cell B6. Hit enter, and there you should have the data. Well, you have like 31 items, which is great. Next, I'm going to just parse the items component here. So I'm just going to name that or label that items, close this thing here, and then create a data table from this entire JSON object that we have. You can modify any of the layouts in case you have more than this, but essentially you should very easily be able to reproduce whatever information you have here to another spreadsheet